أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآل محمد الأئمة والمهديين وسلم تسليما. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So today we have a very interesting topic that we're going to talk about, and it's actually kind of connected to the previous lecture. You can consider it to be part 2 of it, and it is about the matrix or the machine behind reality. Okay? Now, we know that the religions, the Abrahamic religions and all religions actually, they seek and they exist to answer a few questions. One of them is, how can I attain salvation? How do I know that after I die I'm going to go to a good place and not a bad place? And they also seek to answer the question of, why is it that we're here? Why are we stuck in this place that we don't know how we got here? We don't know what it is. What is this reality? What is this place? What's the point of it? And that's what we're going to seek to talk about today. What is reality? What is the purpose of our existence? And why are we alive and here, according to Muhammad and Al-Muhammad alayhim as-salam? All right, so we know that in Al-Haft al-Sharif, there's this description of this machine. It really is described as a machine that operates in cycles. It repeats itself, as you saw in the previous lecture. Adam after Adam after Adam. It has reoccurring figures and characters in it. It's like this movie, this video game that people are playing repeatedly. And it has in there an Adam and Noah and Abraham and Moses, Jesus and Muhammad in every cycle. There's also a judgment at the end of every cycle. And souls, we know also from the previous lecture, they have to go through it. It doesn't seem like there's an escape. Every soul has to go through this place. The ones who succeed, we said, become angels, and the ones who fail, they end up becoming animals and demons. Al-Haft al-Sharif teaches that each person has 21 incarnations. All right? Let's see the segment of the text that explains that. Al-Mufaddal ibn Umar said, I asked my master Ya'far Al-Sadiq alayhi salam, how long does it take for a believer to rise to his degree until he becomes devoted and ascends to heaven and descends down to the earth? He said, in 21 incarnations. It takes a person 21 incarnations in order to become complete. I said, how long is the incarnation in years, O Master? He said, 1,077 years, during which the believer is reincarnated 21 incarnations. And that is that for every 100 years of these years, there are 2 incarnations. For if there were more than 50 years in an incarnation, then the same amount that had increased from the 50 years in the first incarnation is subtracted from his life in the second incarnation. And if he lived in the first incarnation less than 50 years of age, his age is increased in the second incarnation the same amount that it was decreased from the 50 years of the first incarnation by those calculations, until there are 21 incarnations in the length span of 1,077 years and 7 hours. Very precise in Al-Haft al-Sharif. So what are the mechanisms based on that narration? Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is saying that the believer is assigned 21 human incarnations. The disbeliever also is assigned 21 human incarnations, but then if he ends up failing, which the disbeliever does fail, he will have an unlimited amount, possibly, of incarnations as maskh. So when we're talking about the 21 incarnations, these are human incarnations. The animal ones don't count. They're not within this time limit. Some spill over and some under, but in the end, the total is 1,077 years spent as a human. Meaning what? If every incarnation is 50 years, all right, or approximately 50 years, when Imam Al-Sadiq ﷺ is saying it, he means approximately 50 years. Because if you divide 1,077 by 21 incarnations, you'll find that it's about 51.28 actually. So it's just a method of him speaking. So what is Imam Al-Sadiq ﷺ saying? He's saying that if you have a person that is supposed to get 50 years and he dies at 31 years, he's still owed 20 years, so his next incarnation, he'll be 70 years old instead of being 50, okay? All right. So do all people get 21 incarnations? Well, that seems like a trick question because it seemed like we had just said that they do. But actually the incarnation numbers vary. They differ. Not everybody will get 21 incarnations, but you will get 21 incarnations. How is that? So I said, oh Master, a man might live to be 120 years and perhaps more than that as well. So Imam Al-Sadiq ﷺ explains and he says, and that too, because perhaps he will die in this hour or this day while he is in his first incarnation. And perhaps he will have 2 incarnations and he lives in each 1 year or less than a year. Whatever increases over 100, 2 incarnations are decreased from him. So that's the thing. You might live 2 incarnations in 1 lifetime. Okay? All right. So that is concerning whoever has a lack or increase in that, the 50 years. As for the 21 incarnations, they do not exceed the total of 1,077 years and 7 hours. So nobody can go over that total. The total is the same for everybody. Everybody lives that amount of 1,077 on earth, but you might not be born 21 times. And that's interesting because it goes along actually with what Imam Ahmad al-Hassan had previously said. Because he said, for example, about Hawa Eve, he said that she only had 2 incarnations, the one that she has today and the one that she had in the time of Adam and Eve. So this is only her second one, right? But when we look at Genesis and Islamic hadiths, they place Adam's life at around 930 years. And they place Eve's lifespan around the same. So 1,077 minus 930, that means that she has 147 left. So obviously she lived many incarnations in 1 incarnation. For every incarnation over 100 is counted as 2, and so 930 would have been counted as like 19 incarnations. Okay? Yes. All right. So everyone is equal in time, and that's important for us to understand here and see the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and also see the order, the divine order that is within this matrix or this system. Every soul gets the same amount of time on earth in human incarnations. The numbers of incarnations might differ, but the collective time is the same. Judgment then follows these incarnations. All right, so here's a question that I was asked by Brother Suleiman after the last lecture. He said, but do people incarnate across cycles? Could we be here and we have people that live amongst us that are actually from the 2nd cycle or the 3rd cycle or the 4th? Well, let's look at some evidence and see. We have in this narration from Al-Haft, al-Sharif, it says that Muhammad ibn Sinan said, there is no bird that flies except that it has a mother and a father and an uncle. Now, this seems like a simple statement, but it's actually a profound statement that he's saying. What he's saying is that there is not any single bird or fly that has been created, okay, except that this bird and fly used to have, as a human being, right, a mother and a father and an uncle, all right? And so Abul Hassan turned towards a carpenter who was working at his house and said, you see that carpenter there? He was a rooster in the first cycle, and today he's a carpenter. Okay? Yeah, so obviously it seems like it is possible, but let's look for more evidence. In another section of Al-Haft al-Sharif, Al-Mufaddal said, O Master, did the companions of Al-Hussein see Gabriel? He said yes, and they saw Michael and Raphael. And that's important because we know Gabriel's from the 1st century, right? And Michael's from the 2nd cycle. And I see them and you see them. Al-Mufaddal said, O Master, I see Gabriel, Raphael, and Michael. He said yes. I said, O Master, in one image or in different images? He said, rather in our image. Al-Mufaddal said, O Master, when have I seen Gabriel? He said, you've seen him today. Al-Mufaddal said, where? He said, in this house of ours. At what time? As-Sadiq ﷺ said, in this very hour, would you like him to talk to you? He said, by Allah, I would. He said, O Abu al-Khattab, are you Gabriel? Abu al-Khattab answers and says, by Allah, I am Gabriel. And by Allah, I'm the one who was sent by Al-Hussein minhu salam to the cursed Umar ibn Sa'd. And I'm the one who spoke to him and shoved his face into hell, he and all of his companions. And I am the one in charge of punishing them by his command. And I'm the companion of the first Adam. And he commanded me to shout one shout at creation. So I dismembered them, and I bound them with chains and cuffs. And I am the companion of Noah and his call to his people to the worship of Allah and his oneness. But they did not acknowledge, so I split them with the flood. And I'm the companion of Abraham when they denied him and threw him in the fire. And I, by Allah, was with him, and nothing of the heat of the fire struck me, nor him. And I'm the companion of Daniel and the Ark of the Covenant and the scrolls. And I, by Allah, wrote it with my hand and my writing, and I never doubted and never doubt his godhood. And I am the companion of Moses and Jesus and Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And I am Abu al-Khattab and the father of good, and I am the one who shouted a shout at the people of Lot, and I destroyed them. And I am between the hands of every imam in every age and time, in different images and under different names. And I am with the Qa'im between his hands. I blast the oppressors with his sword, and he commands me, and I obey him, and I give life and death and distribute sustenance by the command of my Lord. Okay. So why was that important? That was important because he's revealing himself. He's an angel from the 1st century, but he's revealing himself as Abu al-Khattab. Well, once he reveals himself as Abu al-Khattab, that means that he was born, because Abu al-Khattab was a companion that was born. He had parents, we know about it. He lived a normal life, so he was actually incarnating. So he was an incarnation of somebody who lived from the 1st century in the 7th cycle, or from the 1st cycle in the 7th cycle. All right, evidence number 3. So, in Al-Haft al-Sharif, Al-Mufaddal ibn Umar is asking Imam Al-Sadiq, O Master, is there an end to paradise and hell and a time limit? Now remember, paradise and hell is at the end of a cycle. He said, yes, because Allah said in the story of paradise and hell, they will dwell therein for all the time that the heavens and the earth endure, except as thy Lord willeth. He said, O Master, to where then is the destiny of the people of paradise and the people of hell? So at the end of the cycle, after the heaven and hell, where do they go? Imam Al-Sadiq minhu salam says, the people of hell become of the despicable. He said, what are the despicable? He said, bugs and flies and ants and the likes of that. So obviously, where are they going to be bugs? Where are they going to be ants and flies? In the next cycle, when it repeats itself. He said, they transfer from thing to thing? He said, yes. And they transfer from creation to creation, for that is the greater punishment. He said, O Master, what do the people of paradise become? He said, angels. All right, so we get from there that a man comes out of Masakh into human form again. So transitioning back to human after Masakh is possible in a new cycle, the rooster. This means that every cycle is a new trial. It's a new turn. People get a new chance, even the disbelievers do. Humans from previous cycles can return to new cycles as angels who descend or incarnate in human form. So we saw from these traditions that the creatures, whether they're bad, whether they're good, whether they're animals, whether they're angels, they are all coming back from one cycle, pouring into another cycle. So it is possible. And that means something really phenomenal, to be honest with you. The people of heaven and hell enter new cycles as angels or beasts or humans. It means that actually in this Raja, we might not just have one Moses or one Adam. We might have the Adam and the Noah and the Moses from the first cycle and the second cycle and the third cycle and the fourth and all the people again. All right, so here's a little bit of a map to demonstrate for you simply the concepts that I'm trying to explain. Cycle ends. What happens? They have judgment. There's a heaven. There's a hell. People of hell, they go forth as animals or they become the demons of the next cycle. As to where the people that succeed and they enter into heaven, where do they go afterwards? They go into the next cycle, influencing it as angels, and it carries on, or they cross over as humans. Cross-cycle incarnation is possible for believers and non-believers. So could we have in our cycle the first Adam or Noah or characters who played the roles from other cycles? We said already yes. And here is some evidence to that, actually, that speaks directly to that. Khalid ibn Salim said, we were sitting at our master Ja'far Al-Sadiq and we mentioned a man. So they're talking about a man. It doesn't say who the man is. It's a mysterious man. So he said, I do not know him. They said, verily a man witnessed to the desolate, deserted lands of Khurasan 7 times. Now, pay close attention to the wording here. He saw the desolate, deserted lands of Khurasan 7 times flourishing. He, minhu salam, said, so how many times do you think he saw it while it was in ruins? And the Sadiq was asked by those who were present about this world. He said it is 400 cycles, and the cycle is 400,000 years. Remember, we mentioned in the last presentation that sometimes they refer to cycles in periods of 400,000, sometimes in 50,000. You're going to understand it now. And in every cycle, there are 7 Adams, and in every cycle, there's an Adam and Noah and Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad. All right. So what do we have here? We have that if you map that onto the 50,000-year unit, you get the following. Basically, the 400,000 are as such. It's a breakdown of this. It is 7 of the cycles put together. Cycle number 1, from Adam all the way down. Cycle number 2, 50,000. Cycle number 3, 50,000. 4, 50,000. 5, 50,000. 6, 50,000. 7, 50,000. That's 350,000 years. And then you add on there that they stay in heaven or hell for an additional 50,000 years. That becomes a week, right? A week of cycles, all right? A day with your Lord is 50,000 from what you count. Yeah, it's a week with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. So in Al-Haft, the world cycle spans roughly 40,000 years. A normal cycle, they call it 50,000. A world cycle is the week cycle. It's 400,000 years. And it contains within it 7 Adamic eras, each associated with a full prophetic sequence. Okay? Think of it as a cyclical week, a divine week with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it was mentioned to Imam Al-Sadiq that a man had witnessed the desolate lands of Khurasan, flourish 7 times, the immediate implication is that this man had incarnated in the 7 Adamic eras of a single world. Do you understand? Yes. However, Imam Al-Sadiq doesn't stop there. Imam Al-Sadiq immediately expands the time frame. He's like, hey, your mind's small. Focus here what I'm telling you. He says 400 world cycles, each lasting 400,000 years. 400 times 400,000, that is 400 weeks. And he asks, how many times then do you think he saw it in ruins? So basically Imam Al-Sadiq is saying he saw it flourish how many times? 7 times? Well, it's usually more in ruins than it is flourishing. How many times do you think he saw it in ruins? He saw it over the course of 400 world cycles. Each world cycle is 400,000 years, and he was in every single one of them. How many times do you think he saw it in ruins? So this strongly implies that the man's soul incarnated not merely across a one world cycle, but across many cycles, witnessing repeated ruin with only 7 instances of flourishing. So the problem here that we have is that we have the story, very simply put, of a man it seems to be stuck in the matrix. He can't get out. You know, he is stuck and he can't get out, and he's stuck for a very long time. So humans can remain trapped endlessly in cycles or in the matrix if they do not pass. That's the thing. Once you come in here, there is a desired result. You have to complete the requirements to exit the matrix. You can't exit otherwise. You will be stuck here. Tracing lineage through cycles. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam says, there passed upon our father, the prince of the believers, Ali ibn Abi Talib, a man. So he said to him, O Prince of the Believers, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, what are these lineages that people trace themselves to? Meaning, I'm the son of so-and-so, son of so-and-so, son of so-and-so. So he called him and said to him, trace your lineage. So he said, yes, I trace my lineage to Ad and Thamud and Qarun, and between them a lot. He had his whole legacy line, family tree memorized. So he said, Imam Ali alayhi salam responded to him and said, you do not know how to trace your lineage. I will tell your lineages, and I'm going to tell you mine. I am Ali, the 7th of the 7 weeks of the Adamites. So, is the appearance and details of every cycle the same? In every cycle that takes place, we know that there's an Adam. We know there's a Noah. We know there's an Abraham. Right? We know that these characters come. But is it exactly word for word the same? Are the events precisely the same? Well, let's see. We have a clue in this piece of poetry that was written by Abdul Muttalib, the grandfather of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He wrote this story, a poem about the story of Ibrahim ibn al-Ashram, who is basically Abraha. And its verses are the completing, unchanging ones in their course for the purpose of understanding, and they are as follows. O caller, you have made me listen to everything you said, and I am not deaf. Allah supported a truthful matter. He has His sunnah in this people, not in the nations, for the house has a protecting God. Whoever approaches it will be destroyed. I told Al-Ashram to purify his heart. Verily, Al-Ashram will be caught up with regret. Until he said, we know Allah, and in us is the trait of keeping kinship ties, and we keep and fulfill theos. And we have an incarnation in every cycle. One time in the Arabs and another in the non-Arabs. So that's a major detail that changes in the cycles from one time to another. That means that basically, one time the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam appear as Arabs, one time they might appear as Persians, one time they might appear as Germans, one time they appear as Americans, one time they appear as and. They are sent to the Arabs and the non-Arabs. So there are details that change. In every cycle or universe, the details may change slightly, as we previously saw with the 7 different speeches of Moses. Modern cosmology allows for the possibility that different universes have different physical properties. And you have the multiverse theories, which you all know, that different universes can have slightly different physical laws or constants. And this allows for freedom of will and fairness. All right, so let's get to the main question that we posed at the beginning of the lecture, which is, what is the purpose of our existence? What's the purpose of this matrix that we're stuck in? The Al-Haft al-Sharif gives several answers. One of them is guidance. In the very end of Al-Haft al-Sharif, you have this ending that Al-Mufaddal ibn Umar writes. He says, "And all praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. The secret book titled The Given Heft from the Preferences of our Master Ja'far Al-Sadiq minhu salam is completed. And the book is called Al-Haft al-Sharif because it is the news of the beginning of creation and how its origins were, and about its end and how he detailed it and transferred the selves from condition to condition for the purpose of guidance." So we know that the matrix has a purpose, and that's to guide. What else? And from Muhammad ibn Ali, who said, "If the circle spins, it spins upon nation after nation and century after century until the believers are purified, just as pure gold is purified." Completion is another one of the reasons. Al-Mufaddal ibn Umar said, "I said to my master, what is the limit of the believer's completion?" He said, "When the believer elevates to the degree of the doors." I said, "Do they keep elevating higher and higher in degree until they become like angels, and the need for food and drink and interest in those things is lifted from them, and they ascend to heaven and descend to earth?" He said, "Yes, if God wills it." I said, "In the form of an angel or a human?" He said, "In any form that they will." So completion is also one of the reasons. So what is completion? Al-Mufaddal said, "O Master, describe to me knowing Allah, His true knowing, and completing in knowing. What is this completion?" Al-Sadiq said, "When he knows Allah purely, without any suspicion or doubt, and confesses that his Lord is the High, Most High, and admits to His Godhood and oneness, and that He is rich and noble." So when he's free of all doubt. So the goal of the matrix is to separate the believers from the non-believers and to purify them to the point that they are perfected in belief and free of doubt. Why then do the purified ones come back to the matrix after paradise, though? Duty. In Al-Haft al-Sharif it says, "For the knowing of your Lord is the final destination. And you must be dutiful to your brothers from the preferred ones of Allah, for rescue is within it. And do not meet any of your brothers except with humility, even if he was less or lower than you in honor and money and offspring. For if you do that, Allah will lift off of you the burdens of the matters of this world and the hereafter, and Allah shall be behind every trade for you, O brother." He said, "This is concerning our Shia and every believer that is raised to the degree of his friend. For it is upon his friend that hasn't been raised to that degree to submit to him, and he must obey him until he is raised to the likeness of his angelic deed and becomes like him in the degree of faith and knowing. It is then that he does not have to obey anyone. In fact, it would be incumbent upon all his brothers who are less than him in degree to obey him until he reaches the degree of the door." I said, "Oh Master, what's the degree of the door?" He said, "The degree of the door is that he sees the Imam anywhere he wishes, and nothing is veiled from him, not a towering mountain, nor a solid one, not a deep sea, nor a perimeter wall, except that he sees him whenever he wants and wills." It is essentially, the matrix is an angel-making machine, or school for spirits that graduate as angels. And once they graduate, they have to fulfill their duty towards the rest of the other spirits, pay back the karma, pay back the due by lifting them up and helping them also graduate. Okay? So the matrix is a purifier. It ensures that those that are like Iblis stay away from God and the angels. You see, there was no matrix before, and then Iblis disobeyed. And then the matrix came into play, and it became a barrier, it became a test, it became a purifier. It functions like a water purifier or sift. The Haft describes a cyclical system or matrix. The point of life is designed to purify souls through repeated incarnations until they reach complete knowledge of God, graduate as angels, and help others reach the same state. The Qa'im marks the final unveiling and closure of this Adamic creation, after which a brand new creation begins. And so this is the cycles. We enter into it, we're purified, we become angels, we return to help others until the cycle ends, and then we've totally separated the believers from the non-believers, the darkness, the disobedient tyrants, the shayateen from the angels. Those who are angels, where do they go now? They get to be, they're qualified enough to be in the presence of God, and God reveals himself to them. You have to graduate through this school that purifies you so that you can be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala once again. And the matrix acts as a trap and a sift, a place that Iblis created that got turned on him by God, that traps all of his shayateen inside of it forever and ever and ever, so we don't have to deal with them no more. Assalamu alaikum.